I need to pour some coffee for this one. So October 2nd, I had my brother, my sister-in-law, their kid, and they're all over at my house. And we haven't seen them in a while. They were out because they live in Asheville and they couldn't go home.
Oh, hurricane.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
they couldn't physically make it home. So they were in some hotel down in Dallas. And I was like, why don't you just come up and stay with me, man? Like, we can hang out. You know, you guys been paying for these hotels. Like, just come stay with me.
Yeah.
So they show up, and the next day, I was giving a talk at Mile High Fire Conference about mental health and about how to overcome depression and all that stuff in the fire service. And I was stoked because I'm like, cool, my big brother is going to come see me talk.
Yeah.
Like I was very excited about that because I mean, I respect him, you know, more than most. And so we're sitting there and we're out on the deck having tacos, got our kids playing together. Like it was awesome. And I see my phone ring and it's my stepmom. And we have a fine relationship, like, but we don't talk on the phone. And I was like, something really bad's happened. And so I pick it up and I walk outside and she's crying. She's like, your dad, he shot himself. And I was like, okay. And I'm walking around outside and I'm like, it was one of those surreal feelings. Like I kind of knew it. Like when I saw the phone, I'm like, that was it. And he had been going through some financial troubles, right? Same thing we were just talking about, right? This like drive to accumulate and try and like fill your bucket with shit. And I'm standing outside and this like weird, I felt like there was like a line drawn in between my house of like a perfect moment happening out in the deck. And then like my whole world falling apart out front and nobody knew it but the three of us. And so I talked to the doctor.
Who's the three? What do you mean? You?
Me, Lynn, and my dad, right?
Okay,
like,
gotcha.
Like we were living a different existence than everybody else. And so I talked to the doctor because my stepmom, she knows nothing about, nor should she, right? Medical stuff. And so I'm like, is the doctor there? Can I talk to him? He's like, hey, you know, he ran down the laundry list of things that made it so that like there's no way that he was coming back. And so I put Lynn back on the phone and I'm like, hey, the doctor said that they can keep him on life support for a while, but Lynn, it's over. So I stand outside and I'm like, I don't want to ruin everyone's day. And I also don't know how to even approach this. Like, how do I get my brother out here without alarming everybody? And I like stood outside for maybe like 5 minutes. And I'm like, I'm going to give him 5 more minutes of this like perfect experience that we're having. I'm also going into like crisis mode of how do I get plane tickets? Like I'm making a list just like we would on the fire ground. I'm prioritizing and trying to execute tasks. And I'm not allowing myself to like even think about what this means in the grand scheme of things. And so I mentioned, I go out to the back patio and I, kind of wave my brother in. And I'm like, hey, let's come out front. I come out front. I'm like, dad shot himself. My brother, who was a medic for a while, and we have very similar kind of like, all right, what job can we do? And we kind of like give each other a quick hug, and then we start calling people, start making plans. And I call my uncle, and my brother calls our sister, and the next person I call after my uncle was Cody, who runs Mile High. I'm like, hey man, I hate to do this to you, but I got to go to Montana. Like my dad shot himself. Like I got to go. And it's just, you have these people in your life that are there for you. it's just so like heartwarming when you allow them to take care of you, you know? He's like, no problem. Like, don't even think about it twice. We got you covered. And then there's the question of, what do you need? And I was like, I don't know what I need, dude. I just know that I can't be there. Then I call my boss at work, and she says the same thing. Like, do not come back. Don't worry about work at all. Like, forever, pretty much. And my wife comes out. I tell her, and then eventually my sister-in-law. We go into full on task mode, booking flights and doing that. And then my sister-in-law's like, I'm taking the kids for ice cream. I'm like, great, because I don't even know what to do about that. So we start booking flights and packing and things like that. And their son is a little bit older, and to where he can truly understand like what is going on and the implications of everything. And I asked my brother, like, how do you tell your kids this? Like, what's your plan? Because I need one. And my kids are young; they're 5 and 3. But the 5-year-old, he recently spent some time with my dad, and we FaceTime all the time, and I probably talk to my dad a couple times a week on the phone. I start packing, and I'm like, "Hey, buddy, I need to go to Montana." He goes, "Oh, like why?" I'm like, "Grandpa's really sick." He's like, "Okay, is he gonna die?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." And he's like, "Oh, I'm really gonna miss him." And I'm like, "Yeah, me too, buddy." And he made it just so sweet. Like that is really, if you were to take all of the emotions and boil it down to like what the end result is going to end up being, that's it.
Oh, I'm really going to miss him.
Right?
Yeah.
And I just thought, like, man, out of the mouth of babes, right? Like, he was able to take all of the emotions and all the bullshit that I've been going through over the last couple months, and he boiled it down to like that. Hey, Dad, guess what? At the very end of all this, when you go through all this, like, this is what it's going to end up being. You're just going to miss him. And so we book all of our flights, and I call Paco, who we just had on the podcast. I tell him, and he goes, "Okay, what do you need?" And I'm like, "I need a ride to the airport at 4:30 tomorrow morning. Can you meet me at the training center? And I'm just going to leave my truck there." He's like, "You want beer or coffee?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man." He's like, "All right, sounds good." So we drive the next morning, and me and my brother were pretty silent the whole ride, just because it's like, this is fucking bananas, man. We show up. Paco's got coffee and a case of beer at 4:30 in the morning. And he's like, "I didn't know what you guys are going to need." We're flying up to Montana, and I keep thinking about like what, like, I know what it looks like. I mean, how many suicides have we gone on, dude? And a lot of like GSWs, right? Like, I know exactly how this looks.
Mm-hmm.
And do I want this to be like the last thing I see of him, So I kind of have a plan in my head to talk to the doctor about like, hey, how does he look? Because I want to be in there, but at the same time, like, I don't want to see that shit. So we show up to the hospital. We meet with the doc. Doc's like, "Hey, here's the what we have going on, and we have as much time as you guys want to take." But I think at that point, a lot of us were like, let's get this over with. Not in like a shitty way, just like, what are we waiting for,
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked the doc, I'm like, "Can you cover everything? Like, I don't want to see, and I certainly don't want my family who isn't used to this to see what I know this looks like." We go in, and he just like, your dad's like Superman growing up. At least what he was for me, like a monster of a man. And, he's been in a contractor his entire life. And he was my call anytime I needed anything. And then you see this like shell of what you think, like what you remember of your dad, right? And he's just laying there. And we've been in so many hospital rooms throughout our career and been on so many suicides, and like now it's yours. And it was like a very surreal experience. Being on the other side of that really gave me like a lot of context for the rest of my career when we go on this stuff of the like emotions of, at least for me, like 100% anger, like 100% anger of like, you fucking asshole, man. Like, because it's weird because I was even on the other side of this when I was going through depression from the job when I had those thoughts. And so I'm like, I knew what you were going through, dude. Like, I saw the other side of this, and you fucking you pussed out, man. Like, that's truly how I thought. And just so angry. And I think that when we go on this stuff, we get real calloused. And like I know for a fact I've made jokes on scene, and it's dark humor. It's us trying to get through seeing what we're seeing and making light of it for, and we've never done it in front of family. We've never done it in front of that. But it's just it's different when it's yours. The reason I want to talk about this is because not only I think it's important that it's not such a taboo thing, and then the other side of this is I know for a fact that we have listeners, we have people on our job who have these thoughts because of our job, right? Like suicide is a major issue in the fire service right now, and the police and military, and you know, a lot of people that listen to this show have been affected by it, I'm sure. I can tell you that I truly think that my dad thought that he was doing something selfless. Like, I'm going to take all this pain away from everybody else because I'm the problem. We fixed the majority of my dad's problems in a week. We all came up, you know, he owed a lot of people a lot of money. And I think he felt overwhelmed with what he thought his problems were. You're not making anyone else's life easier by doing that. And it might feel selfless, but if you ask for help, not like, hey, I need to go talk to somebody, because I don't know if that works for everyone. If you can prioritize your problems and just ask people for help, you can, in my opinion, you can avoid this ultimate decision, because it crushes everybody around you. And there's other ways. There really is. I mean, 4 people were able to take care of the majority of his problems in a week. And it just, it has this ripple effect that, you know, I know it wasn't his intention. I think honestly, I think his intentions were good. In his mind, he thought that he could remove burdens from everybody. But I was in the hospital room, and I think it was Jordan Peterson who said that, like, you are a man when you're the strongest person at your father's funeral. And I kept that ruminating, and I'm like, I'm not ready for this. Like, I'm not ready not to have like a safety net. Like, you were my fucking call, dude. And now I don't have that anymore. And like, my family was looking to me for some guidance, some like, because I'm a task person. I'm also the person who had the most amount of medical experience. And so, you know, like when the choice to extubate, or, you know, how that was going to look, and hey, I have to make sure that all the monitors are off because I know what that sounds like. And can we increase the propofol because I know what it looks like when people are dying and their body's giving up and there's jerking and there's noises and how can I prevent that? So like they were looking to me for that. And I'm like, hey, fucker, this was your job. And the anger just kept getting like bigger and bigger. And so I didn't touch him. I didn't talk to him. I called my mom and I'm like, I don't want this to end. Like, I don't want him to leave this earth because I truly believe that his soul was still in that room. And I'm like, I don't want to leave it like this. So I call her and I'm like, I want to forgive him so bad, but I don't at the same time. And she said something to me that I thought was like really profound. And she's like, your forgiveness has nothing to do with him. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she's like, your forgiveness is you letting go of your anger. It has nothing to do with like giving him anything. And that took a lot of weight off me. She's like, you might have to forgive him 10, 15 times a day. It's not just like a one and done. I thought that was an interesting view of forgiveness. We all had a moment where we had some time with him by ourselves. And I hadn't cried at all, really, up until that point, and I fucking let him have it. I said everything I wanted to say. And I left it at that. I just walked out of the room and called my uncle, and him and my uncle they've had blowouts their entire life. And I'm like, hey, this is about to be it. Do you want me to put you on speakerphone? Say whatever you want. Just hang up when you're done. I don't know what he said. I don't really care, but I think it was an opportunity for, everyone to say what they were thinking at the time. And we go back into the room as a group. It's about to be it. They're about to extubate him. I hold his hand, and I remember, like, we have the same size hands now, but like mine still felt like a little kid's in his. And he felt just weak. And it was like you got to see behind the curtain, like in Oz, right? Like you have this idea of like who your dad is. And maybe it's not your dad, maybe it's someone else in your life, but you realize like they're just people. There's nothing special about them. They're just, skin and bones at the end. You think you like have more time with them. Like you think that you'll be ready for that. And like, I don't know if anyone's going to be ready for that. And so he ends up passing. I go out to the nurse's station and I'm like, hey, how did he get here? Was it Big Fork Fire? Was it, because I wanted to talk to the crews because I know what that's like to see that stuff. But we see it all the time. And he lives in rural Montana where this might be the only suicide that this crew has ever seen. And I'm like, hey, I want to know who brought him here. And I wanted to check on him and just make sure they're good because this is fucked up. And it turns out that he shot himself in a cabin on a property he was working on. An individual had shown up right when he did it and held pressure until a flight crew got there for 45 minutes.
Held pressure for 45 minutes?
Yeah. And so,
Jeez.
Yeah, Ish is right. And so the flight crew was out of that hospital, and I got to talk to the crew chief or whatever. And they ended up intubating him on scene. The only reason we got to say goodbye was because of that flight crew. And I can't tell you the gratitude that I have as someone who's on the other side of getting that option. And so if there's any chance that you're on one of these calls and you can keep their heart beating until you get them to the hospital, like what an epic gift they gave us. And we told him that. And so we're heading back to his house, and the decision was made to get all of his heavy equipment off the property. And so that night we we go back to where he did it. And that was fucking nuts, dude. Like, you're walking into this room, you're seeing what his last like sites were, and there's still like OPAs on the ground, and there's blood on the hardwood floors, and it's just like just a surreal experience. And then the rest of the time that we were up there, you know, we're moving all this heavy machinery around. I'm sitting in this like big ass backhoe. And like, I've driven skid steers and, you know, stuff like that. But I'm sitting in this thing and I'm like looking up YouTube videos on how to actually operate this stuff, because it's not just like a old school piece of shit skid steer that, like, obviously
nice.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
It's all this technology. And I'm staring at the cat. I mean, this property is absolutely stunning. And he was building this 15,000 square foot mansion for this guy. And I'm looking at the cabin and the window of like the last thing that he was looking out of. And I was so fucking pissed that he didn't stick around long enough to teach me how to fucking do all this. And I think that's when I finally lost it. Like, complete
Anger?
No, just complete breakdown.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I reached my max of being able to handle this. And that was it, dude. Just fucking lost it for probably like 30 minutes. We end up getting all the stuff off the property for the most part. And we come home. For the last month or so, it's been a really interesting, because I've never really grieved before. And I thought that I was like, I had the mental toughness to get through fucking anything after, man, I have a lot of podcasts where I talk about how fucked up I've been. So I was like, well, you know, I spent probably a week, just kind of numb, like not really knowing what to do. And I have all these creditors and pissed off people that he owes money to calling me. And they're fucking savages, man. But I get it from their side too.
You get yelled at all?
I didn't get yelled at, but I got a lot of like...
Did you get some did they talk about him negatively in the phone call?
Not in a way that was like, your dad was a piece of shit. Yeah. But they're like, you know, he owes me a lot of money. And I'm like, well, what do you want me to do, man? Like, I'm trying to grieve here. And I get it. He owed you a lot of money. And now you're fucked.
Just send me an email with the amount. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, like,
I can't help you right now.
I see it from your side.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, not my problem. You know, like, and I know that sucks. But I don't know what to fucking tell you.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to some people at work, and I ended up getting in with a therapist. Oh, this is good. So I take a week off of work. I call my boss and I'm like, hey, I'm ready to come back. And she's like, no, you're not. And I was like, no, I'm ready. She's like, you're not coming back to work. And I was really pissed at her. It's like, fucking tell me. Fucking, I got mental toughness. Thank fucking God, man. Because the very next day, I am like inconsolable. I can't function. When I finally do go back to work, I'm like, hey, thank you for not letting me come back as clearly. Because like, I have to stand up in a bunch in front of recruits and teach and deal with their issues and, you know, be engaged. And I wasn't fucking ready for that. So I go to this therapist meeting and I'm just kind of chatting and he goes, you need to give yourself grace. And people have been telling me that the entire week. Give yourself some grace. So I go, what the fuck does that mean? Like, what does giving myself grace mean? He was like, and he's like, in my opinion, you need to just allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling. And I was like, well, that doesn't make it. Like, how do I do that? He's like, what I think he wanted to say was, listen here, dumbass. If you're sad, be sad. If you're happy, be happy. Like lean into those emotions as opposed to like I gotta do this, this, and this. It's like if you just want to sit there and do nothing, just sit there and do nothing. That's fine. I'm like, okay, I can do that.
He probably could have been talking too about like there can be some guilt with being happy, right? Like let's just say you're on your back porch again a week and a half later, and having that moment with the family, and it's really hard to laugh knowing what's going on, right?
I think for
Really hard to
me, I
relax.
agree with you, right? Like you're like, well, I should be sad. Like I'm a bad person if I'm happy. It was more of I think I didn't want the grief to go away because I to me that was like letting him go even more, and it was like almost like a way to stay connected to
Yeah,
him. Um,
like your life was going to move on, and
yeah,
you'd forget,
right.
and it's like you didn't want that.
Yeah, and I think what was shocking was like it was a every waking moment for a month. It's all I thought about. It was like all consuming, even when I was at work. And
Yeah, going from coming from my perspective, um, I was 17 when my brother died in a car accident. So that when you just said like for a month, you think every minute. Yeah, I remember being there. I think now it's probably like once a week, maybe. That something comes because when I do think about him, it's more of a deep thought. It's not like oh there I just think about something he did. It's like man, I wonder like if he was here, we'd probably be doing this together, and
wow,
or if he was here, like my kids would have I think a pretty, good uncle, and we'd be pretty close and doing. So you think it's more of that deep thought stuff?
do you have do you have moments where you get sad again, or is it just like what does it feel like that many years later?
Going back to, I'll answer that, but one thing I wanted to say is going back to like how you said that the flight crew kept him alive and gave you that opportunity. I had that same thing, right? We had a flight crew fly him in. They kept him alive. He was alive for 3 to 4 more weeks. But man, that's a lot of my memories now.
Yeah,
So I don't know if that everybody got to say goodbye to him. So I don't know. Being on the flip side, it's like, would I rather not have that, but then not have been able to say bye,
mm,
or have that hope for 3 or 4 weeks that he's going to pull out of it?
right. Was that a thought? You're like, hey, I think this.
I think we thought so because like overall his body was in actually great shape.
Mm,
It was just a brain injury. But your question of does it go away thinking about it every
yeah,
day? Yeah, it does. At least from a sibling perspective, I can't speak on the parents, because it's like they say like losing a sibling is similar to losing a parent, but nothing's like losing a child.
oh, dude,
So I can't speak for that.
thank
Only
God.
my parents could.
Right.
And I think my brother's birthday is coming up, and I'm would I would imagine that it still hits my parents a lot harder than when the day opens for me.
Right.
There's a lot to as a parent, giving birth and what you everything, right?
Yeah.
So I just think a lot of the thoughts are like what could have been, and like where would he be now? Like he'd be close to 50. About that 48, 49, 50. It's a long time, right? I
Yeah.
mean, he died when he was 23, so that's double that. It's like, well, man, what could have happened?
Right.
So, and then kind of going, another thing you brought up is, and kind of going back to the whole suicide thing. God, I remember, in my family, there's been bouts of depression. There's history of that
Sure.
for a myriad of reasons. But I still don't forget my mom saying at some point during my childhood, and the family suicide would come up, and it was like, that is not the answer. you are fucking everybody else that's still here and making their lives way worse when you think you're solving it. And so that always stuck with me. I never had any SI or anything like that. But, when kids are kids and they inevitably say things like they hate this world and all this, and then they're going to do that's it worked for me. So that's how I kind of reinforce it, is like, that's not the answer. It never is the answer. You're making it worse for everybody else. You're not solving anybody's problems,
Yeah. There is no way around what you're going through. You just have to go through it.
Yeah.
And I think that suicide feels like, well, I can just end this pain. And you're right. You can end it for you. And I know that he was not in his right mind when he did what he did. That's where I'm saying, like, your issues and your problems that you feel like, and in your mind, are so big they cannot be solved. You need to rely on your family or your friends or somebody to help you. Because when you're gone, guess who's picking up all the fucking pieces anyways?
The issue with that, though, is like when your family is the one that you've hurt, like not suicide, but like in your life's decisions, I think that's where they feel despair. Like going back to, we were talking about that Ashley Madison documentary.
Yeah.
And, you've got that guy who's a seminary professor.
Yeah.
And his name's leaked, right? So he's really kind of cheated on his wife of a long time. She's already hurt. Mm-hmm. But then it finally gets leaked, and so then he loses his job, so everything's over for him. Who he needs to be able to lean on is the person he's really fucking hurt.
But guess who picked up all the fucking she did?
So then he kills himself, and it's like, that's not fair, man. Like you kind of cheated on her in the marriage and all that, and then you left her to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
And so now, like, she's stuck with finding you. She's stuck, that memory. She's stuck with, the failed marriage, the embarrassment of that. And it's like, that is not cool. That's not fair.
It's just like those people that you think you can't rely on, they're going to be the ones that are going to pick up the pieces. And one thing I can say is, like, if you have kids, regardless of how old you are, you need to make sure that you have things in place to make it easier for them when you're not here anymore. You need to have, whether it's a will or something, because we were left with no direction. He had wrote some suicide notes to other people except for his kids. And that hurt real fucking bad.
So you told me that a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was like, man, that is fucked up. I was thinking that. Thought about it more, and I'm like, maybe he couldn't. Maybe it was so fucking hard to, like, put the pen to paper to think about his kids that he couldn't.
A lot of that I've gotten over. I'm trying to give him benefits of the doubt on a lot of this stuff. But the other thing is, like, all this stuff that he tried to fill his life with, all the junk, all the fucking toys, we threw half of that in the fucking trash, man. Like, all this stuff that you thought was going to fill this void in you all got thrown away that pretty much the next fucking day, because we had to take his shop and move it that weekend because we had to sell it. We had to just get it gone and try and, fix some of these finances. And, like, all this stuff you think's important, all this bullshit that you're buying, it means fucking nothing. It means nothing to your family either. Like, we went through a lot of his stuff, and you're looking at it, and, what was important to me was a hammer, the fucking work boots I'm wearing right now, and his shop apron. Like, that was my inheritance. Like, that's what I really connected with. None of your other bullshit, man. Because it's all trash. Like we literally trashed, we threw it away. The other piece of this is like when you're going through this grieving process, your family is going through it with you. We had some moments at home that were like really tough with me and my wife. I'm a fixer. I am supposed to be like the head of the household, and like I'm supposed to have my shit together. And I was doing a terrible job at everything. And we kind of had like a bit of a come to Jesus, and I'm like what is you didn't lose your dad kind of thing. And I didn't appreciate the fact that like my family's going through this with me, because I feel like, because I internalize absolutely everything. Like this is my problem. I'll fix it by myself. And my wife was like, I don't know how to fix you. And like that really hit home, because like I'm like, I don't need to be fixed. And I think that obviously I would think the same thing. Like, how can I make you feel better? This is my opinion. I don't think you can make someone feel better.
It's time.
I think you can be solid ground to stand on and a soft place to land. And if you can, because everyone was awesome in my life. Hey, what do you need? Like, I don't know. I don't know what I fucking need. Like, you, you reached out to the benevolent fund, and I didn't know that was happening. Like, we had people that were just bringing over food. That was incredible. Everyone wants to help. And those people, I should say, I can just speak for myself. I didn't know what I fucking needed. I just needed people around me that made me feel like secure. That the week or 2 weeks after it happened, I was waiting to hear another gunshot. Like, who's it going to be next? I was with my family who was grieving, and pretty much the first thing I did when we got back to the house was I took all of the guns out of his house and brought him over to a safe spot. You're just like, it's quiet, you're kind of doing something, and then you'd have this thought in your head like, who's next? Who's going to pop themselves next? It's fucking wild, man.
I think that's normal. I mean, it's not like suicide or guns like that with me, but it's car accidents,
Yeah.
forever.
How are you going to deal with that when your kids start driving?
I already fucking worry about it now.
Yeah.
I worry about it when my wife drives around,
Yeah.
It's just, and part of it's our job too.
Right.
We see it's reality for us, the suicides and the car accidents. So it's like, fuck, man, this shit happens. It's a part of daily life. It's like, fuck.
The thing with car accidents is like, you could be the best driver in the world.
Yeah, and somebody crosses the midline.
Yeah, some drunk asshole, smoke somebody. And, speaking of the car accidents, one of my best buds, his dad died in a car accident. Same thing, right? Some fucking drunk dude wasn't paying attention, ended his life. And, he had this like really, and still has this really dark humor about it. He called me shortly after, and I was really looking forward to talking to him, because the people who have lost their fathers at this age, there's not many of us that I know. And he reached out and he's like, "Are you ready?" I'm like, "Ready for what, man?" And he's like, "You ready for dead dad jokes?" I was like, "Can you give me another week?"
And he's the only one that could do that with you,
100%.
So
100%.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's been a very interesting last couple months, and still working through it, still trying to figure out like what like how we move forward as holidays are coming up, and I have a feeling that'll be have some rough moments to it. But I wanted to talk about this on the show because I know how prevalent that is in our job, and I want to wanted to let people know that like that decision is going to have ripple effects, and not to put any more pressure on yourself that like you're like, well, fuck, man, I'm already in the worst position and worst spot in my entire life. Now I have to worry about letting everybody down and doing all that. It's like, I just want to let those people know, as someone who's gone through it himself on both sides of the table, having the thoughts myself and being on the back end of someone who actually went through with it, your problems can be solved. You're not alone in this whole game, because if you do that, someone's going to pick up those pieces. So why don't you just have them do that with you? And I promise that as soon as you ask for some help, and it might not even be help with your mental health, it might be just help with the problems that you're bringing you to that, you will realize that those people are going to help you whether you're here or you're not. It's not like that gun goes off or that last bottle of booze gets drank and your problems disappear. You're just giving them to someone else. And reach out to those people, whoever they are, for that help before. Because, I mean, like, how good did it feel to be able to, like, help me out with flights and shit like that?
I mean, it just, it's just what you do. It's
like,
a way to contribute, but
it
people
made you feel good, right?
Yeah. I mean, sure.
Yeah. Like,
I wasn't, it's a distinction of like looking for that. Like, I by no means, I don't think anybody that was reaching out to you was looking for that feel good, but it
100%. It wasn't a, hey, this is a way that I can fill my bucket, but it does feel good. People want to help.
Yeah.
They're going to help.
They want to help you feel better.
100%.
Yeah.
And you need to allow them, when someone told me, like, never deny someone an opportunity to bless you. Like, don't deny them an opportunity to help you, because they want to, and they're going to do it whether you're here or not. So you might as well benefit from that. When your tribe comes together, when you're in a bad spot, like, nothing makes you feel better than, accepting that from other folks. And I just, it's brought my family tighter. I got to see the strength of my siblings, which was cool. You get to see them step up, and, definitely, like, me and my brother, like, we fucking handled business, and that was really cool. I'll when this episode goes out, I'll put some links up to some suicide hotlines and things like that, and where you can go and get help for stuff. But, when you feel like there's no one that can help you and there's no one that can solve your problems, I get it. I've been there. But they're going to solve your problems whether you're here or not. Thanks for tuning into The Standard Issue. Get exclusive content and support the show through our Patreon. You can find the link through the-standard.us. While you're there, check out our premium gear and links to our sponsors. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Till next time.